There are a couple of different plea deals. The one everybody knows is a straight plea deal. You're charged with a greater crime. The prosecutor says, hey, look, if you plead guilty to a lesser crime, I'll just dismiss the greater charge. Then there is creative types of plea deal. One's called a deferred sentencing agreement, and that's a conditional plea deal. You go in, you plead guilty, then you go on probation for a certain amount of time, for example, 9 months. If you don't pick up another case, you comply with all the release conditions, then we come back to court in 9 months and actually dismiss the original guilty plea. And so there's no conviction, even though there was a guilty plea in the case. Prosecutors only offer deferred sentencing agreements to people who this is their first case, and typically for nonviolent crimes. Then there's also something called a deferred prosecution agreement, and that's basically a suspension in the proceedings. So no more status hearings, the case doesn't proceed. If the client doesn't commit another offense and is compliant with its release conditions, X amount of time to come back to court and the prosecutor dismisses the case, no guilty plea involved whatsoever. So there's a lot of room for creative plea bargains, but typically we need the government to be able to play ball in order to get those. As defense attorneys, we can't force the prosecutors to offer a plea agreement. We can only informally negotiate with them. We can leverage the facts of the case. We can show how the client is a sympathetic client. We can show how the circumstances were out of his fault. We can show how the client has a mental illness. And we can work with prosecutors to get a favorable resolution that never involves a conviction.